Welcome to the Living Out Loud show with Michelle Wadley and Alan Vukas. In each episode, we will explore practical spirituality through inspiring and enlightening conversations. Be a part of our weekly conversation with a rotating cast of speakers, teachers, and authors as we uncover and share spiritual, mental, and emotional tools to help you live your authentic life out loud now. Well, hello and welcome to another episode 13 of the Living Out Loud show. I'm Alan Vukas.
And I'm Michelle Wadley, and we do welcome you to another wonderful episode. And today we will have a guest speaker, and we are so glad that you are here with us as we continue with our conversation about practical spirituality to empower you in living your authentic life out loud.
I love that. Yeah, living out loud. That's our theme for this year. And each week, each episode, we're here to have fun and engaging conversations to support you on your path. And this month, Michelle, we've been talking about this powerful topic. I know that one that you're really passionate about as well, and our guest in a moment is going to be talking about. But we're the light within the shadows.
Yeah.
And
it's a beautiful
beautiful topic. And so let me go ahead and welcome our guest and bring her into the conversation. I'm really excited to introduce you all to her because she was featured also in this month's magazine, this month's Science of Mind magazine, about the topic we're talking about, Light Within the Shadows, and that's Reverend Dr. Sunshine Michelle Coleman, who has been in this teaching, New Thought teaching, practical spirituality for more than 4 decades. I don't believe that, but I'm just quoting her bio. She doesn't look like that. But she is an ordained minister with Centers for Spiritual Living, and she's in her 10th year as a minister. And where she is serving as the pulpit, the spiritual director and senior minister is at the Oakland Center for Spiritual Living. They're so blessed to have her there. She's also the founding community leader of Authenticity Journey of Renewal, which is a focus ministry. And I know that through our conversation today, Reverend Sunshine is going to share with us, and we will witness her passion that she has for authentic self-expression and in sacred circles. And she was part of us even talking about this topic because she's on the Centers for Spiritual Living Global Themes Team. This is her 4th year, and she wouldn't tell me what we're talking about next year. But welcome.
You got get it from me. I'm not going to get in trouble.
We bribed her, but it wouldn't work.
Oh, welcome to the Living Out Loud show, Sunshine.
Yeah, thank you for having me, both of you.
Absolutely.
We'd love to hear more. Your article this month sparked so much for me at the center I serve at in Rhode Island here, Concordia Center for Spiritual Living. We're following the themes. And I was quoting you specific, around how you define shadows and all that. So today I want us to sort of pick some of that apart. And so I'm going to just throw it to you first. So what inspired you around this topic? What brought it, why did you want to talk about light within the shadows? So we'll just start there and let the conversation unfold.
Sure. Thanks for the question, Alan. Well, on the Global Themes Team, it's a team of 12 of us, 12 or 13 of us over time. And so we do our beloved visioning process to see what Spirit wants to, what's up, what we all are tapping into. And so we all came up with, we narrowed it down to living out loud. And then we saw what else was on the docket, what came up in the visioning process. And there was a lot about shadows and light and how they work together. And I'm always attracted to that because it's a rich and fertile place to grow from, to grow in that shadow space. And we've been trained and taught and socialized into a society that's afraid of the dark.
Yep.
And there's a lot of people who know about the richness of the soil, for instance. There's a lot of great things that happen in the soil to help grow a plant and a seed into a plant. And there's scary monsters, and there's all kind of fear, I believe, in what we as humans can't control. When we don't know something and when we don't understand it, then we learn to fear it and therefore conquer it. I don't know if we've conquered that darkness space. So I was gravitated toward it because it's a great place to springboard from. So that's how I landed in that space.
Yeah, I just you sharing that, and there was something that you wrote about. I guess it's inherent. There's an inherent need for these dark spaces, and I got the illustration in your article. You talked about the child that is growing in the darkness and being nurtured in the darkness. But I must be honest. The need for the dark, I don't know, it pushes some buttons. I was like, oh, maybe I have some shadows around. Maybe I have some shadows. It's like, do I need the dark in order to really experience the light? And to so I know what you're talking about, that we've been trained. I found evidence of it as I was reading.
Well, just think about it. It's like, I believe, let me tell you, my philosophy is that as humans, as spiritual beings, I believe we're spiritual beings having this human experience, or else we wouldn't be here on earth, right? I believe that we're here to experience and make mistakes and learn from them, or what have you. And if you think about one's emotions and that those dark places, that if you apply your spiritual practices or other practices that help you grow from them, more than not, you'll get people saying, wow, that was really a deep experience. You get to that place over there in the light because you went through this dark night of the soul or these deep times. If we don't shy from it, if we resist it, and it's going to keep us in a swirl. I believe if we breathe into it, we help ourselves to appreciate. That's what I've been doing the last couple of years, is appreciating the places I've been in my life that felt dark, and simply being with it and welcoming it and seeing how it took me into the light. So this was a rich and juicy topic for me as I grew through the pandemic, as I grew through changes in my life, as I grew through some stuff. My light shines brighter because of it.
I want to add in here that as one, being in this organization on my own for 21 years, and then a year prior to that as a staff minister, I am thrilled beyond words that the organization has collectively matured enough to not fear these conversations. Because there was a time prior to where we are now where it was not embraced. It was not invited. It was rejected in all honesty. So I'm thrilled, and someday, Alan, we will have to get the Reverend Dr. Jim Lockhart on here to really talk to us about the spiral dynamics, because what's happening is, as we entertain this, right, and as we move through these conversations around authenticity and the shadow, and what was the one prior to authenticity, Alan? I can't remember. Another great conversation. I can't.
It was another one. It was a
Was
great
that Dr.
It's
Catherine? Dr. Catherine Trauma? Was it?
I'm just trying to remember what the month's theme
We
was.
started with roots. Oh, wait, here. I have it right here. What am I talking about?
Living Everyday Wonder.
There was, are you talking about for this year so far? It was curiosity. So we rooted and rebooted. Curiosity as a superpower. Cultivating authenticity, which was my month. Then we had vulnerability, and now we're talking
vulnerability. Right, that was the one I missed. So as we progress through for everyone who is willing to embrace this conversation, there is a spiritual evolution happening within our organization. I'm thrilled beyond words that we went in this direction. Thrilled. So I just wanted to say that because we can't. Yeah, I mean, it's obvious we can't keep doing what we've always done and expect the organization to grow.
Do you know, I would just add to that, Michelle. So I literally, from my teachers, so I mean, I grew up I was a United practitioner, and I went through my ministerial training through international. So I was sort of a hybrid. But as a practitioner coming up, and my teacher was a student of Dr. Hornaday, Bill Hornaday, and we had a conversation in our prac class around shadows, and I was told directly, a quote, "We don't need to do shadow work in Science of Mind. We do not need to do shadow work because we hold the principle, and we don't need to explore that because the light will take care of that."
There's a term for that, Alan. It's called
what is that term? What is that term?
It's spiritual bypass. Spiritual bypass, where you pray something away. You act as though it's not there because you're focused on the wholeness of the divine. And we can focus on that, but also know that if the divine is everything present, then it has to be these spaces over here that embrace that darkness. And what's in there for it.
That's so spiritual bypass. And I have to say that, so I was biased. I had some biases for a number of years on my path because of what my teacher told me. And I've come to learn, it's like, after now a year of therapy and doing parts work, it's realized, oh, there's all these parts of me that have been hiding in the shadows are waiting to be seen and let out. There's light there. And so this bypass, so could you tell us a little more, Sunshine? So what are some examples? So what would be some examples of or evidence of spiritual bypass? When are we doing that?
Well, I don't know. We could probably be doing it at any point unless we check ourselves and pay attention to what we're doing. It's when we are choosing not to look at what the effect of our experience is. If there's illness here, certainly in our prayers, we can focus on wholeness, on health and healing and that sort of thing. And we need to do something practical to help the healing process, help us to realize our wholeness by hydrating, by, if there's some medicines you need to take or some exercise you need to do or whatever it is to support the physicality in realizing the wholeness and not bypassing that and saying, no, I don't need to do anything like that because spirit is divine health, wholeness, and I'm realizing that right now. Well, yeah, you might. And that doesn't mean that you don't do something else. We used to have a term called treat and move your feet, meaning using our spiritual mind treatment as affirmative prayer. And the whole treat and move your feet meant that when you did a spiritual mind treatment, that doesn't exempt you from doing some action. There's something that we have to do to cooperate with spirit to get us into that healed place.
That was a wonderful example. So I guess, for someone who's listening, as far as things that maybe we might say without even unconsciously when we're bypassing, that was a wonderful example. Oh, I don't need to because I'm perfect, whole, and complete. When we don't deny, I know that Holmes tells us that we don't deny the conditions, but we deny the power that they have.
People confuse because we've also been taught that where your attention goes, so goes energy, right? So people confuse that with they think if they focus on it, they multiply it and they won't know how to handle it. what is not globally understood yet is that we focus on it with a purpose and an intention, which is to love and then incorporate. That's a different kind of attention. That's not worry. That's not, oh my God, well, I don't want to talk about it because I don't want to make more of it. That's a whole different animal. But when we say, no, I want to look at it because when I look at it, I can love it or forgive it and then embrace it. Man, now we start to move toward a state of wholeness that, we haven't known. But people confuse that. They confuse placing their attention with giving it too much energy.
Yeah, absolutely, Michelle. And I believe that as we co-create with the divine, we may be touched. Spirit may touch us in a way that gives us direction and guidance as to what to do in order to support the process. But we first have to understand how Spirit speaks to us in order to be able to even listen and get the message and then to do it.
Right. Yes. Yep. And with a lot of the studies that we're doing on my side of the world at the moment with the Gabor Mate, the myth of normal, and what is important, and how the shadow gets created is important, and the reality of the amount of stress that any one of us have experienced in our lives, and how those stressors often land in a shadow. And it's, so all of that starts to get tied together, most specifically around our health. And I'd love to hear your opinion about why it's important to look at the shadow and how that relates to being in good health. If you can put that together for us.
Yes, I give an example all the time. It must be one of my favorites because I hear myself use it with individuals and when I'm on the pulpit, is if you and for some reason, I always point to my left arm, like my forearm right here. So if for some reason there is an outbreak or, there's an illness in the body that you don't know exactly what it is, and you don't even really know it's an illness, but it breaks out as a rash here. We're usually treating the symptom of that and, put some topical cream or with nothing wrong with the cream or a Band-Aid or whatever it is. And then what if something else erupts in a different place? Right. Do we tie those two together? Until we're looking at and examining from a metaphysical, spiritual view of what our thoughts are, what our belief system is, those things that can be hidden in the subconscious that can sabotage our healing, until we clear our mind through meditation and prayer and visioning and the different things that we use to be able to hear it and then do something with it. This is an action-oriented philosophy in my mind. Then we can begin clearing some of that out and realizing that it's in there in the first place, and therefore we're healing from the bone, if you will. So we're healing, all those layers of skin and wherever that illness is at the root cause, then we're able to heal it from the inside out through the layers as opposed to superficially on top of the layers, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. No. No, I really, everything you're saying, it just causes me to have hope for what's possible, because the brilliance of spirit, when we integrate the shadow, has greater access. We become more accessible because, they say you have to be empty in order to get full, right? And so if we can stop being distracted by the shadow, by the pain, by the judgments, by all that stuff, then suddenly, it's funny. In the past 2 Sundays, I didn't do it with mindfully, but I close my talk always with a spiritual mind treatment. And this past 2 weeks in a row, I realized that I wound up opening my arms and just being in this stance during the prayer. And I thought about it afterwards. I thought, I don't know if they think that's a little weird or not, but I feel newly compelled to have this posture of receptivity. And that becomes more possible when we do our shadow work.
Absolutely. It's an opening. It's an openness. And, it's interesting because I don't know what your community would think of me then, because I'm always this way. Every time somebody gets a picture of me, it's like this, or it's like this, or whatever it is. And it's that, and it's a good analogy, Michelle, because when you're like this, when your hands are closed, then it's hard to let anything in. When you open up yourself, when you take a look at what's there, it can cycle through. You can bless it. You can look at what's down in there, and you can either choose to be frustrated. Oh my goodness, I've been working on this for so long. You mean there's still some left? As opposed to, I love flipping it, as opposed to saying, oh, yay. It hurts a little bit to know that I still have some work to do, and it's good to know that it's down there. To me, that means that these layers have been healed so that the stuff that is deep underneath is coming to the surface. Then, as it does, it can be witnessed and released. It can be blessed. And then there's curing at the root of it.
Yep. And you mentioned the subconscious, and that's something else. And I'm saddened that we have less focus on Thomas Troward and the Edinburgh lectures within our practitioner studies than we used to. Now he's kind of scooped up into one smaller class. But we in my community, we have relished the conversations around Thomas Troward and the Edinburgh lectures, and the absolute necessity to understand the nature of the subconscious, not the unconscious. People often do that. But the subconscious, and how the subconscious is the holder of all this stuff. And when we have greater understanding, we can take it out of feeling blame and feeling shameful, and just realizing, oh, this landed there. Oh, I have something to look at, without all the judgments. And because so many individuals, they don't want to look at it because they're so busy judging themselves. So the subconscious is a really important part of this conversation.
It is. And I think of it, Michelle, as leaning in. I love that, leaning in. I use it all the time. And I heard you use it too, Alan. Leaning in with curiosity and wonderment. When we lean in, I get closer, right? Tell me more. And if we can suspend our judgment and our arrogance and thinking that we know everything, and just let ourselves be humble and listen in, then we can take a different positionality with it, and then we can learn something, we can grow, we can release, we can open up to the infinite possibilities, as opposed to staying closed. That's the way I like to see it.
I was just sitting here listening to someone who may not be on this path, who doesn't know anything about classes or Centers for Spiritual Living or anything about this. And so, because what it sounds like so far, this sounds like a wonderful thing to explore, right? It sounds like shadows sound like a wonderful thing to explore. And without even maybe necessarily knowing what that means, I wanted to quote, and I really don't, Sunshine, I don't like when people quote me to me, but I wanted to quote something.
Really? It's going to feel new, I bet you.
But and I'm going to quote something here, and then I have a follow-up, but a question. But so, and this is what I shared on Sunday, the shadows of darkness. So for those who don't know what shadows are, because I don't know if we gave a definition specifically today. But so the shadows of darkness represent the deepest parts of ourselves, those emotions that can yield pain, grief, and sorrow. Many of us learned as children to hide or push away those parts of ourselves in fear of the hurt and agony they might cause. So these shadows can yield pain, grief, and sorrow. It sounds like can be painful and scary. So for someone who is who wants to gain some of the benefits that we've been talking about here, reclaiming our power. How can someone do this safely or do it in such a way to maybe minimize some of that pain and grief and sorrow that might be there below the surface?
Yeah, it's a
How does
great
someone
question.
begin? Mhm.
Yeah, and I appreciate you expanding this to someone who is intrigued by it, and I'd pay attention to the intrigue, but doesn't know how to broach it. And so I started writing a few notes and listening to you. I would encourage someone who wants to explore their inner self more to have some sort of practice, some positive practice that they can turn to for support, whether that's reading inspirational material, whether it's having another person to be able to talk to that we feel safe to talk to and that we can be heard and they're not going to give us advice or or someone that can be a guide for us, and to have a support system of sorts of things that we, if you're going to a therapist or if you're going to a licensed spiritual practitioner or what have you, to be able to help the processing part, that then as you go individually to those places, which you can do in meditation, you can do in just sitting and listening, like what is coming up for me. I always recommend a journal, just get either just some paper or a booklet or something that will help you to capture some of your thoughts that come up. And the thoughts will lead you to more thoughts. It will help you to delve down in there. And if you reinforce it with the support system, as you learn more, sometimes it might not even make sense to you. And that's, but capture it anyway, because it may come up randomly. It may not be linear, but it's coming up and you're noticing it. Write it down, because at some point it's going to connect and you'll say, it'll connect you to an old memory or to something that once you take a look at it, that caused fear or that caused you to hide or that caused this, these senses about you that have helped create some of these experiences. So it's a layered process. Don't feel like you have to address it all at once, because it's a over time kind of thing.
I would say, I mentioned an overreaction. That can be a evidence of sometimes overreacting to a situation when doesn't anyone else see what I'm seeing and how crazy this is? But I've been triggered by that, and taking some time to journal or listen. Or you serve as the senior minister at Oakland Center for Spiritual Living, and I'm sure you have plenty of practitioners there who are available to be of support. A practitioner, as well as Michelle at CSL North Jersey or Concordia, practitioners can be a safe place, having a safe place for someone to listen.
If the practitioners have done their shadow work.
Right.
Just saying.
Many of us are exempt.
Right. And it didn't happen for a lot of people. That's why I'm so dedicated to his work now, because I know they didn't get it. I wanted to add one more thing to all your wonderful suggestions, Sunshine, and that is, Debbie Ford took Carl Jung's work and made it palatable, for the Western world. Her first book, Dark Side of the Light Chasers, in and of itself, it implies dark, right? So I don't use that book anymore when I'm recommending it. I recommend her the other book that she had, which is The Shadow Effect. So it is a good way to learn and understand about it, better than the other one, because the other one was so heavy. I used to tell my people in my practitioner class, I said, this class must, and I would require it before they started their training. And I said, but you must do it in a group. Don't do it alone, because it was so heavy. You could trip upon a shadow, and all of a sudden you've revealed this deep, profound shame. And if you're not prepared to work with that, oh my Lord, it can be, disorienting. But this shadow effect, the second book, a little more gentle. It navigates it a little bit more. And I'm I'm a believer in prayer. We in this movement, whether you're in CSL, Unity, Divine Science, any of them, if you have prayer in your life and you have a relationship with the divine, you are perfectly poised to invite spirit to reveal all this to you, and then to invite in integration. So between prayer and just the education around that book, I just wanted to throw those two others in there. And yes, Ellen, I will send you the name of that book because I know you'll ask for it.
And there's another one I've been waiting to. Alan said something at the top of the hour, but we moved on to something else. So I'm going to I knew I was going to infuse it in here somewhere, and I'm thinking about a time along the last few years for me where I did a lot of shadow work. I was examining these places within myself with curiosity and wonderment, and I can look back and say, whoa, was that rich and juicy? But while I was going through it, it really wasn't. And what I realized is embracing all aspects of myself, is what you said, Alan. And what I ended up doing was it just kind of came to me to do, so I did it, and kind of in a meditative place. But I identified the aspects of myself, or those that were prevalent for me, and there were about 7, and I gave them names, and I invited them to a table. I imagined them coming to my table to talk about authentic self, because they're part of my full authentic self. And asked, what is it that you have to offer? Because you are needed. You're here for a reason. So what is it? Help me to hear what it is what gift you have to bring to me. And you are welcome here. And then I blessed each one, and I prayed, Michelle, to your point. I prayed for each one. I incorporated that into my prayer work. And it was a subtle thing that happened. It wasn't like that. There was this sense within me as I kept doing my work, and as I kept getting examples of things that I could do to support this type of work. There's a wholeness that comes together. All parts of yourself come to the table, because you better believe the side of myself that was, let's say, anger, and I had some cute little name for anger. I think of that cute little movie Inside Out, that animated movie. But when anger has something for me.
Yes.
Anger has a place, and until we acknowledge anger within ourselves, it's going to act out. But when we love it through, then it can come in, inform me, and then it can sit down at the table, and it may even decide that I don't need to be here anymore.
Right. And I totally want to jump on that too, because what I have been trying to do in my community, in my classes and all that, is and I hear it naturally in your language right now. You are reframing the way that we hold the shadow, which is to love it. The shadow class that I used to teach, we originally called it Dancing with the Shadow, because I wanted it to be this thing that I was going to partner with it. It just like back in the day, less now, but people, condemn the ego. They always talked about the ego, about getting rid of the ego, fixing the ego. Well, you can't get rid of your ego. That's not a possibility. But I can love it, and I can embrace it. And the same thing with the shadow, which of course they blend together. But I love the reframing. That's important.
I mean, because if you think about it, that in and of itself creates obstacle for us. The way we language, the way we do things, it creates that fear that we've learned that we're going to hold on to for dear life, because we don't know anything different. But when we can flip it and see it differently, have different perspective to it, then it, like we were talking about, opens it up. It opens it up. It's like, I'm not as afraid of that. I can participate in this. I can do this. When you think about it, it's like, and it's in some of the writings for this month. It's like when you go to see fireworks in the sky, what? You don't go during the daytime with with a firework display. It has to be at nighttime to have the contrast. That's dark.
Right.
That's darkness.
Yeah,
So,
beautiful.
so this process, I mean, it's us not exploring those emotions that are in fact contributing or are the factors in them being shadows.
Mhm.
That is because we're going to be angry whether there's it is the repressed and the unavoided. This is where then it becomes something hidden that drives us and compels us. But this process that you mentioned, Sunshine, that you did for yourself, how often did you do this? Was this something that you did on a, I'm just thinking of someone who's sitting
Oh,
here
she
who,
did it only one time and done.
well, no, but I'm just, so what?
It was like it's not a regular process. I mean, I probably need to revisit and
Mhm.
just to check in. But at the time, some of the things that I was going through were pretty vibrant in my life from a space of negativity and darkness. So I wanted to entertain it and got that idea. And, I probably worked with it over the course of several weeks. But
Mhm.
then I felt, I no longer felt the need to work as actively with it because there was some movement.
Sure.
But, just because it served for that one time doesn't mean that we can't go back or that as we experience more of life, that other shadow things happen.
Right.
It's a constant process.
Mhm. So it's like a counsel almost, and
It was
bringing
absolutely.
those voices in, intentionally inviting them in, so to hear their voice, rather than turning away. But what that light that is in the shadow, that or the in the highly charged environment, what I'm going through, what is wanting to be known at this time by that voice. I wanted to add, I know that I on the chair of the Centers for Spiritual Living, the visioning team. And over the years of visioning, I have begun to see visioning through the releasing, the embracing, and the becoming. That part of visioning is a practice of intentionally opening ourselves up to what is there within us that is looking to be explored, um, and brought into that larger conversation for this higher vision that spirit has of us,
Yeah.
that higher self that we already are, that light that already, so that we may be open to fully see it and to be that. And so visioning is also a powerful practice.
And listening to you makes me think to say, Alan, that in that practice that we were talking about, you don't have to just invite the shadow aspects of yourself to the table. We're more than that. We're not just the light and we're not just the dark. We're both.
Mhm.
So you have joy and anger sitting at the table. You have humility sitting at the table with you. You have love. You have, in all aspects of yourself, everything about myself is welcome. When we welcome that, then we're willing to listen to what it has to offer. And there's lesson in there.
Mhm. Yeah. That's already known within us. It's already known, it's already here within us, but bringing it, allowing it to come to see the fireworks, right? Going into those hidden places so that we can actually see the light, those fireworks that are,
Well, I don't know if it's always known. I go back to what Michelle says is,
yeah,
you might go to a practitioner and the practitioners have to do their work too.
yeah.
Sometimes, unless we examine and welcome it, we don't know. That's the
I,
thing, the subconscious. We don't know that aspect of ourselves is there.
yeah,
And then when we look at it, we go, oh, I didn't know I felt that way. Or, oh, that old memory, I just let that go and it's still bothering me.
of course. I'm talking about there is a consciousness and intelligence within us that does know.
Oh,
Of
yes.
the one mind is what I'm speaking of. That
Yes.
it is known, but
Yes,
it is just not yet, consciously. We're not aware of it. We might not have awareness of it.
I agree with that.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
And I want to throw out there, based on this flow of conversation too, to any practitioner, minister, therapist, anybody of that nature that works with individuals for this purpose, that unless we can support individuals in not being afraid of looking And to the contrary of really willing to embrace it, what happens is because when you start waking up, this feeling of shame that's there. Sometimes it's like, oh my God, I didn't know that I did that. Oh my God, I didn't know what I didn't know. And that can spark some shame and self-judgment. So for us, those of us who do this work with individuals, we must invite people to not judge what was, because the judgment of what was will keep us avoiding it at all cost. And and if we do anything, if those of us, and Alan, you and I on the podcast this month, if all we do is help individuals to be willing and actually to some degree excited, so that when you see it, when something shows up in a clash with somebody, that instead of avoiding it, you go, oh man, I'm about to get my shadow opened up. I'm about to bring light in. Like, what a great alternative to saying, oh, shadow.
Right.
What if we said, oh, shadow, there's going to be more of me.
Exactly. Yeah, you welcome it. You open up to it. It's like, oh, goody. That's the flip it that I was talking about.
Yeah.
For sure.
Lovely.
It's the reframing our relationship with it. Just like, when people might say, oh, I need to have a difficult conversation. Is it really difficult in the fact that you're leaning in with interest to understand someone better? Is that the difficult? It's sort of like a conflict resolution where it's about gaining a deeper understanding. It's how we work with that. So I'm going to shift us on. This could send us down a whole other conversation, but that we could probably do a whole show around. But how the Sunshine, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the importance of us doing this work, and especially and its impact on our society, our societal shadows. We are living in a world now that there's a lot of pushing against and denial and rejection. And so how valuable is and necessary is this work on an individual level in order to bring around healing as a society?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's, individuals make up communities, make up society. And as I tell my community, my spiritual community, if we each just did our own work, focus on this, that doesn't mean from an egotistical place, but focus on this. And then when you get out into community, then we're able to come to it with less judgment about what's being said. We can hold space better. We can hold each other better when we have done this work here, and then we can let it cascade out. But it first has to start here. Let it begin with "Let there be peace on earth," the song said, and let it begin with me. Is what I believe. I've been conducting listening circles, and I'm intending to. I've taken the word "try" out of my vocabulary. It's hard. We use "try" so much, and so when I pause, sometimes I'm relanguaging so that I don't say "try" or I snatch
Yoda
it.
would be so proud.
Huh?
Did you hear me? Yoda would be so proud.
Yoda. Anyway, the listening circles, the listening class that I did is to help us understand that listening is more than just not speaking. Listening is how you lean in, how you hold space, how do you help community to feel, or someone who's sitting across from you, safe enough to be able to say what they need to say. Listening is checking in with yourself so that you're not judging what they're saying or framing what you want to say next or anything, that you're in a more open space. And when we can listen in a holistic way with each other, we're creating community, we're creating circle, we're creating safe space. And then if there's a difficult conversation, like when you add anything about, any of the diversity, the DEI spectrum, race, gender, sexual orientation. For instance, there's other things. We could talk about guns. We could talk, there's so many things in this world that we need to be able to witness each other. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we all have to agree. But how do you have that conversation with someone in a safe way? And then you can, hold each other accountable, hold yourself accountable, hold each other accountable. Everybody has willingness. When you do this exchange, there's healing that happens. And then it can widen. So back to your question, Alan, my view of how important it is for the individual work and in the community work, it's essential. It's critical. It's mandatory. We have to do it here, and then it can radiate out. As a matter of fact, my doctorate was focused on authenticity, and the way I heard it was that, and I have a couple of original concepts in there that I'll mention a couple, but there's something called the putter process, PUDR, putter. Peel, uncover, discover, and recover your true authentic self. We've been talking about that today. When someone does that, when they get to the core of those hidden beliefs and they allow some of that stuff to heal, I can come to the two of you and have a different, I can participate in our conversation differently. And then we can go widen that. When we're able to do our own work and we can turn our mirror on ourselves in that putter process and deal with that first and reconcile, then we can turn the mirror outward, and then we can have the conversation out in community and heal. A healing resonance, I believe, is what is created, and it vibrates out and heals in the field. So it's really, really important work.
Let it begin with me. Isn't that what you just reminded me? Let it begin with me. Michelle, did you have any more questions before we?
No, I'm just going to put something. I wanted to put something in here. Oh no, I put it in the wrong place. I put it in the conversation, but I want to. The way I look at it, and everything you're saying is, and the way I look at it is, wait, there is. I just want to put it on the screen here. There is no private good. There is no private good, right? That's what you're saying, because when you and I do our work, and you said resonate out, and yet in truth, the whole is immediately impacted. And I love that. And I'm sure you and I are using different words, but saying the same stuff all over the place, Sunshine, because this is my jam, my jam. To the degree, and I've said to my community, and I probably have said it in here in the show, I refuse to not be myself. I refuse to not be myself. And so that means that I will make mistakes. I will. And I want to, I want that to be there. Like, what I used to say is I wanted a banner that said, I refuse the right to be wrong. So I get it out of that. There's no shadow then. It's like, hey, I know I'm going to be wrong. I know I'm going to make mistakes. Now let's have a conversation.
Well, and yes, I love that. And we have to realize that some people are not there. Like, it's easier said than done. And it's easier to hide. It's easier to not take accountability. We've been trained into that. It's easier to deceive. There has to be a willingness. There has to be a boldness. There has to be, some openness to be able to lean in. And it's not easy work. But when we do it and do the work, it's so instrumental for ourselves and for others and for our community. And I really believe that that's how we're going to realize healing and making it a world that works for everybody. Everybody does their work in here first, turn it out, let it radiate out, and then we can work together. Like, what is it that you need? Oh, is that what's going on? Rather than allowing ourselves to be triggered by what somebody else is saying because we're taking it personally. It's like, no, let it. What if we assume positive intent? And what if we presume that this person doesn't have anything out against me? And let me listen differently. Let me listen to them in a different way and listen them into wholeness and healing. That's going to be instructive for me if I come from that place, and it's going to help them.
Yep. You know, and yesterday I babysat last night, and a number of years ago, you know, I have 3 grandchildren at this time, and sometimes I hear myself when if someone's crying or upset, I hear myself wanting to say, "What's wrong?" But I don't anymore. I say, "What do you need? What do you
Yes.
need?" And because now they can tell me what their need is, but we don't have to hold it in the world that something's wrong.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, we were, at least in my generation, I'm hoping it's not the case right now within the younger generation, but we were trained that men don't cry. You can't cry. That's in the subconscious. That's unhealthy practice. And some people don't know that they uphold that because it's way back there. But when you tap in, you better believe a dam is going to break and some tears are going to come up and some healing is going to happen.
I just want to acknowledge, hello, Constance. I know she's from your community and a good friend. And she just, I want to put that out there. What percentage of people actually need to do their work in order to create a big change? Since there are many always, there will always be people who aren't willing to do the work.
That's a good question. I don't know the stats, Constance, and thanks for being on the show and for listening in and for asking the questions. I don't know the stats, but here's what I will say. I believe that there is a tipping point. We don't know what the tipping point is, but if we continue to pray and to continue to do our work, and the more people that do our work, and we have these bold conversations we're talking about, and it's radiating out, and we bring our community in, and it's radiating out even further. We're praying in, we're reaching out. We're going to hit a point, and I think we already probably are, where this tipping point is tipping it over into, I believe that's why some of the things are coming up is because it's that example I gave, that down to the bone at the root cause. There's some stuff that's happening that we didn't know was in there that is now we've healed enough layers where it's coming to the surface, and people can either choose to say, "Oh my gosh," or we can lean in and say, "Oh, okay."
You know the term for that, right, Sunshine? The old metaphysical term for that?
What?
Chemicalization. You're describing chemicalization. That's exactly what you're talking about. And yes, and you can mislabel. You can mislabel and think something's wrong, when in truth, it's the activity of evolution happening before our eyes.
Right? So keep at it. That's what we need to do, is let that strengthen our faith and let us keep going and let us get bolder. I don't know what the number is, Constance, but I know it's a lot of us, you know, until we see systemic change across. But, you know, look how long it took for all of this to manifest. But we believe in the instantaneous healing also of divine spirit. So let's just keep at it. And before you know it, we're going to see spectacular results.
We can go from where, oh my gosh, to oh my God. You know, I mean, there is where it is. That's how evolution occurs. It falls apart to reorganize it at a higher order. And so, Sunshine, I wanted to say, so at Oakland Center for Spiritual Living, I'm guessing that you guys are following the global themes, and you're talking about the light within the shadows. Do y'all stream live? Are you on Facebook?
We are. We're on YouTube Live and we're on Facebook Live.
Right.
So OaklandCSL.org, and you can click on services and it'll take you to YouTube. Yeah, you can find us out there.
So I'm just putting on the screen right here, and this will also be in our show notes as well, all of Sunshine's contact, or where you can find her speaking and talking, OaklandCSL.org, her own website, drsunshinemichelle.com, Authenticity Journey.org. But that will be in our show notes that you can get if you go to our own website at livingoutloud.show and subscribe. And because this is going to be available in a podcast, an audio format tomorrow, that you'll be able to replay and listen to a lot of the wisdom that was shared here today. And Michelle, where are we finding you at here?
Well, I want to have one quick announcement. If you are in the movement of unity, religious science, any aspect of that, we in New Jersey are having a picnic. No, I apologize for that word. I promise never to use that word again. It slipped out. We are having a food and fun gathering on Saturday, June 17th in New Jersey. So if you want to join us, find us there, and you can come and be part of a gathering of New Thought individuals. So at this moment, it is cslnj.org. I just want to get as many people. And Alan, you can drive down 4 hours to come to a picnic.
Or a food and fun gathering.
Not picnic.
I did it again. It's still in my bones. That's okay.
That's okay, because you can unlearn that, though.
Yes, I can.
And
it's my intention to, because I was fairly horrified when I understood the implications of it. I was horrified.
And if you'd like to follow us, I'm just here for time. If you wanted to, at Concordia Center for Spiritual Living, we are streaming and talking about having this conversation each week. So find us at Concordia CSL on Facebook. You can find me, Rev Alan Vukas, or go to newthoughtnewlife.com, where I occasionally write about some of the topics we're talking about here today. And you'd understand, Sunshine. You know what I'm talking about.
Alan and I served on the Global Themes Team together.
That's right. And maybe I will again. You've inspired me. to
It's good work, but I couldn't come to it without doing my own work. So
maybe I spoke. My month was March, around authenticity, and I chose that because I wanted a deeper understanding of authenticity, and it woke some things up in me. So it's absolutely true.
It's my passion topic, just like vulnerability is for Brene Brown, authenticity is for me, and they all intersect, because authenticity, vulnerability, faith and trust, and some other integrity all kind of go in there together. Courage, curiosity.
This has been a wonderful show. And so thank you, everyone, for joining us. But before we go, we'll just have a brief affirmative prayer here to anchor this. We've got 3 ministers in the room. Anyone would like to share? Sunshine, could we?
Because I do it all the time. Go ahead, Sunshine.
Yeah, I'm happy
just to anchor this.
Yeah, as we come together and close out this rich and juicy and luscious time together, we know that there is one life, one power, one wholeness, one joy, one love, one infinite wisdom that we are all tapping into, that we are created out of, and we are individualized expressions of that greatness. So we simply need to remind ourselves of our power and of our greatness and of our majesty, the grace that goes before us to help us to walk the path of enlightenment, whether it's through the shadow and the light. Both, we know, are so important. And so I give thanks for this time that Michelle, Alan, and I, and all of the viewers, anyone that will be a part of this recording today, in this instance, are blessed. And I know that we vibrate out a power of healing, a power of resonance, a power of knowingness that we are lifting into a world that works for everyone. So I send forth these blessings today. I bless this show, Living Out Loud, with blessing both Alan and Michelle in their ministries. And I send it forth into the divine ethers of love and law with thanksgiving, with gratitude, and with knowingness that it is doing its work and doing it well. So we wait with joyous expectancy, knowing that the good is imminent in our lives this very day, right now, and forevermore. So grateful. We rest this word in truth. We let it be. And so it is.
And so it is.
So it is.
Hallelujah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sunshine, for joining.
Thanks for the invitation.
And thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Great conversation. And Alan, my love, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Michelle. And thank you for everyone watching us and listening to this. We look forward to seeing you next week and for another episode of the Living Out Loud show. Blessings.
We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.